A priest is called to bless a house, but when he arrives, he soon realizes that the house was never built for the living, but rather for the dead. It was an old Victorian-style house with gables and turrets, surrounded by a high stone wall overgrown with ivy. Father Benedict stopped his car at the wrought iron gates and got out, adjusting his collar nervously. He hadn't been called to bless a house in quite some time, especially not one that looked like this. It seemed more like the kind of place where ghosts would linger than a home for the living. The last priest who had tried to bless this house had gone mad, or so the rumor went. Had Father Benedict also been too inexperienced and arrogant to listen to the warnings of the townspeople? He pushed open the creaking gate and started walking up the path, trying to ignore the feeling that he was being watched. The large front door was made of dark wood, almost black, with peeling paint. The brass knocker in the shape of a lion's head looked back at him with its snarling, grimacing face. As Father Benedict hesitated, he heard a voice behind him. "Bless this house," it said. Startled, he whirled around, but there was no one there. Was he going crazy? Had the stress finally gotten to him? Shaking off the thought, he knocked on the door. It was then that he noticed the inscription above it. For the living there is hope, but when the dead are at peace, their sleep is undisturbed. Father Benedict shuddered, realizing the truth. This house wasn't meant for the living. As he waited for an answer, he realized that he wasn't just holding a Bible. He was clutching it like a lifeline. How could he have been so stupid as to come here alone? He should have brought someone with him, anyone to help support him if he needed it. But now he was here, and there was no turning back. Then the door opened. Standing before him was a woman in all black, her face hidden behind a veil. She didn't speak, but her eyes burned into him with their intensity. He wanted to step back, to run away from the oppressive feeling he got from her, but he couldn't move. He was frozen in place, unable to speak or make a sound. And then she stepped aside, beckoning for him to enter. Still without saying a word, he walked inside, closing the door behind him. The entry hall was dimly lit, and what little light there was came from flickering candles on the walls. Cobwebs hung from the corners and dust lay thick on everything. There was a chill in the air, and Father Benedict pulled his collar tighter around his neck as he walked deeper into the house. The woman in black followed him, still silent, until they reached the top of a grand staircase. Then she turned to him and pointed to a room at the end of the hall. Without saying anything, Father Benedict understood that this was where he was to bless, so he straightened his robe and started down the hall towards the room. As he walked, he could hear the sound of his own breathing, loud in the silence of the house. He knew that he should turn back, that this was all a mistake, but something was keeping him here, some unseen force that wouldn't let him leave. He reached the end of the hall and stood before the room that the woman had indicated. Taking a deep breath, he knocked on the door and then pushed it open. Inside, there was a coffin resting in a raised stone alcove. It was made of polished wood and covered with ornate carvings. On top, there were fresh flowers, lilies and roses, their scent heavy in the small room. Father Benedict approached the coffin slowly, his eyes fixed on it. He knew that what he was about to do was wrong, but he couldn't bring himself to stop. He reached out a trembling hand and touched the cold wood. Then he closed his eyes and began to pray. "In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, I bless this house," he said, his voice echoing in the small room. "Grant, O Lord, that all who dwell here may be blessed with your peace, and may the angels keep guard over them." As he spoke, he felt the presence in the room grow stronger. He could feel its weight pressing down on him, suffocating him. He wanted to stop, to run away, but he couldn't. He was trapped, unable to break free of the invisible bonds that held him there. He continued his prayer, knowing that he was playing a dangerous game. "O God, our protector, we ask your blessing upon this house. Keep it safe from all harm and grant that no evil spirit may ever enter here." Suddenly, The lid of the coffin creaked open. Father Benedict froze, his eyes wide with terror. He wanted to scream, to run, but he couldn't move. He watched in horror as the figure inside the coffin began to rise. It was a woman, pale and emaciated, with long, tangled hair and eyes that glowed with an eerie green light. She pushed herself up, her joints cracking and popping, and looked down at him with a cruel smile. "You shouldn't have done that," she rasped, her voice like nails on a chalkboard. "Now I'm free." Father Benedict could only stare at her in terror as she rose from the coffin. She glided towards him, her movements fluid and graceful despite her stiff joints. "I was trapped in there for so long," she whispered, her voice dripping with malice. "But now I'm free, and you will help me get my revenge on those who did this to me." Father Benedict stumbled back, knocking over a chair. The woman stopped and turned her head, and he saw the flash of a knife in her hand. "No," he breathed, his voice trembling. "Please, don't hurt me." She advanced towards him, her eyes blazing with fury. "You disturbed my rest," she hissed, "and now you will pay the price." Father Benedict fell to his knees, begging for mercy, but the woman wasn't having it. She lunged at him, and he screamed as the knife slashed across his face. Blood ran down his arm, and he cried out in pain. The woman laughed, a harsh, grating sound. "That's right," she said, her voice filled with glee. "Feel the pain. It's been so long since I've felt anything." She pressed the knife harder, and Father Benedict cried out. "Please, I'm sorry," he gasped. "I didn't mean to wake you. I didn't know." The woman cut him off with a snarl. "You shouldn't have trespassed," she hissed. "Now you will suffer." Just then, a voice boomed through the house. "Leave him alone." Father Benedict looked up to see a tall, imposing figure standing in the doorway. It was the woman in black from before, and in her hand, he saw the hilt of a silver knife. The woman with the bloodied knife snarled at her. "You stay out of this," she hissed. "This is between me and the trespasser." The woman in black stepped forward. "No," she said, her voice like ice. "This is between you and your grave." She lunged at the woman with a knife, and the two figures grappled. Father Benedict watched in amazement as the woman in black overpowered her opponent. With a flick of her wrist, she sent the knife flying from the woman's hand. Then she pressed her own blade to the woman's throat. "It's over," she said, her voice cold and hard as steel. "Now I'm going to put you back where you belong." The woman looked at her, her eyes wide with fear. "No," she whispered. "Please, don't kill me." The woman in black didn't reply. She just tightened her grip on the knife, and with a swift, sure stroke, she plunged it into the woman's chest. The woman screamed, a long, drawn-out sound that echoed through the house. Then she collapsed, her body dissolving into dust. The woman in black stood there for a moment, watching as the last of the dust settled. Then she turned to Father Benedict, her eyes blazing with anger. "You shouldn't have trespassed," she said, her voice like ice. "Now you will suffer." She lunged at him, and he screamed. And then he woke up. Startled, he looked around him. He was lying on the floor of the church, the morning sun streaming through the windows. Had it all been a dream? He looked down at his hands. They were scratched and bleeding. So it had been real. But where was that woman? Had she followed him here? He stood up quickly and ran to the confessional, pounding on the wooden door. "Is someone there?" he cried. But there was no answer. He tried the handle. It was locked. Then he remembered the key. It was on the other side. He raced out of the church, down the aisle and out the front doors. There, on the ground, he saw it, the key to the confessional, glinting in the sunlight. He picked it up and ran back to the church. As he unlocked the confessional, He could have sworn he heard a whisper in his ear. "You can't hide from me," it said. "I'll find you." He shook his head, trying to clear it. It must have been the stress getting to him. He stepped into the confessional and closed the door behind him. He was safe now, he told himself. But as he sat there, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. He could feel the presence of the woman in black, her eyes boring into him, her breath hot on his neck. He wanted to get away, but he couldn't. He was trapped in the confessional, just as he had been trapped in the house. And then he heard her voice. "I'm coming for you," it said. "And there's nothing you can do to stop me."